Serious, what are some scary urban legends you have heard of? Not sure this counts as urban legend because it was super specific to where I grew up, but my elementary school had a big field for kids to play in during lunch and whatnot. On one side, right by the fence, there was a huge tree that someone had tied a bunch of chicken bones to, all up in the branches. So being small and having underdeveloped brains, all the kids believed those were children's bones and that if you went to the tree alone at night, a man would come out of the roots, eat you, and add your bones to the tree. I think the Blair Witch attended your school, man. 8 feet tall or Hachishakusama is a Japanese urban legend about a tall woman who abducts children. She is 8 feet tall, wears a long white dress and makes a weird humming type of noise. Sounds a lot like the old La Llorona legend in the Spanish-speaking world. Creepy tall lady who goes around saying something like mis hijos, which means my kids. According to legend, she will take any children that she sees after dark. Sounds like parents all over the world used similar techniques to scare kids into staying home at night. So this is an urban legend in my school's 4th floor bathroom. Basically, a student walks into one of the stalls and does her business. Then a voice starts to whisper to her saying rest beside over and over. She starts getting freaked out, so she finishes up and leaves as fast as she could without looking back. Then she tells the story to her very religious teacher, who happens to be a good friend of hers. The girl mentioned the weird whispers and the teacher's face turned pale, because the word rest beside is Latin, and if translated into English, the voice was telling her to look up the whole time. This poop was why everyone was terrified of the bathrooms back in grade school. Not exactly the same story, but very much in the vein of it. No one would go to one specific girl's bathroom alone. I do not know how common this is, although in my state there is an area of woods referred to as the 7 Gates of Heck. The story goes that there used to be a mental hospital nestled in the middle of the woods. The first and second gate are overtaken by the tall grass and the only original standing parts of the entrance. Apparently there was a massive fire that consumed the hospital. Some perished, others were left to make their way through the woods. If you plan to go, you need to go at sundown. Once you pass through the first 2 gates and proceed, you begin to hear a rustling in the bushes. However, even approaching the 4th gate is where most people decide to turn back. You feel as if you are being watched or something is rushing around you. The legend has it that you begin to hear whispers or shouts as you getting closer to the 7th gate. The very last gate is supposed to be the mental hospital in flames. Whether or not you can find the trail to return to the first gate is unknown. That the girls' bathroom at my elementary school used to be a boys' bathroom, and the boy got killed by bullies in there, so they changed the bathrooms around. It scared me so much when I still believed it when I was still going there. To be fair, they were creepy bathrooms. 3rd graders can come up with some weird poop. WTF is it with grade school bathrooms? When I was in kindergarten 1st, 2nd grade, there was a school myth that there was a tarantula living in the toilet of the handicapped stall. So none of us kids were willing to use that stall. We also refused to go alone to the bathroom. Not as creepy as a murder, but we all believed tarantulas were some sort of evil and highly dangerous monster, lol. We have the man in grey in South Carolina. The legend goes that if you see a man in a grey suit on the docks before a hurricane, and you evacuate, the hurricane will pass over and you will be spared. If you see the man and stay behind, you will die. People do not take it lightly. My first thought, go down there in a grey suit when a hurricane is announced. If people are as serious about it as you say, you will save lives. This was also where my mind immediately went. Saving lives. One superstition at a time. This was kinda something that was just talked about in a pool of friends with me, but here we go anyway. So one day I was out in the woods with a couple of my friends and neighbors. My neighbors had to go back to their house for lunch, so me and my friends decided to split up and look around the woods for some branches to build a fort off. My friends went a little further out than I did, so I was waiting at the fort for a bit for them to come back when I heard rustling behind me. I figured it was just a deer because there was and still are a ton of them in my area, so I just kinda ignored it. But I kept hearing it back and forth in what sounded like the same spot but getting closer each time. I tried to ignore it, but I eventually turned around and I saw what looked like a person on all fours covered in moss and dirt. And then they ran away. Scared the Jesus out of me, so I ran away. But yeah, never found out what it was. Had to text my neighbors that I had gone inside. My friends saw me sprinting up the hill to my house. Not super spooky, but it gives me the chills to remember what it looked like. Needles infected with AIDS hidden under the handles of gas pumps. And in phone booth change slots. I see this myth is probably older than I am. Not exactly an urban legend. But here it goes. There was a wealthy old woman my mom used to work for when I was a teenager who lived all alone in a centuries-old house. She had mobility issues, so she had lived in the dining room only for decades, which she had converted to a living room bedroom. When my mom was busy, I would do odd jobs for the woman, who would send me into different rooms of the house to tidy up. These rooms had not been opened in 20 or 30 years. And there were 2 or 3 that used to be her late husband's medical practice. There was an actual human skeleton hanging in the examination room. Medical supplies that were 30 years out of date all just lying around. It was creepy, but nothing really scary. A few times when I went down to get paid after finishing up, we had hear noises like someone was walking around in the house, and she had nonchalantly just say, "It is just spooks." I never believed in ghosts and still do not. One night though, when she was out of town, she wanted someone to watch the house because she was afraid of break-ins. My dad and I stayed over, and after we had locked all the doors and windows and got ready to go to sleep, I heard someone walking in the halls. I shot out of bed immediately to find my dad doing the same. He was an engineer and a die-hard skeptic. So it really scared me when he said, "Let us get the heck out of here." We left in the middle of the night and never went back. My grandma is like the epitome of a good Christian woman. She has so many freaky stories. Once a ball bounced up and down the stairs. Another time she woke up and a woman in white was floating above my grandpa. She said she stayed super still until it disappeared and then they left the house. I can never imagine her lying, and it scares the poop out of me. The old subway trains of A line in Buenos Aires. It is said that the ghosts of the dead workers can be seen on the L cars, and also other ghosts can be seen on the abandoned stations dressed in early SXX clothing. The one about gang initiations where the new guy has to kill someone. They get in a car at night, drive with headlights off. First motorist to flash their lights is the target. I hate that so much. Well, that is just kind of fucked. Gangs are fucking pussy-ass bitches that take advantage of kids. Red rooms on the dark web. There is no evidence that they ever happened. But the legends say they live as dreams of someone being held hostage. And they torture them live on camera. Viewers can interact and request certain things done to the victim. Red rooms are not even necessary. Some videos of cartels are pretty much what you would expect from the urban legend. A local one for us here in Connecticut. The Black Dog of Meriden. The legend goes, if you meet the black dog once, it shall be for joy if you meet him twice. It shall be for sorrow, and if you meet him a third time, you will die. I do not know why, but I find this one creepier than a lot of the stories with some kind of monsters. The Jersey Devil. Freaks me out because I swear up and down I've heard a giant winged beast in the woods one day. The Pine Barrens freak me the duck out. My ex and I went hiking through there. It was a lovely summer's day, and throughout the hike we heard absolutely nothing. No birds, no frogs, no buzzing insects. Just our footsteps on branches. One of those places I would not ever make a return trip to. The one that sticks with me is, a woman is driving home at night down the dark back road. She passes a big 18-wheeler, which swerves into the left lane behind her right after she passes and begins flashing its lights. She checks to make sure her brights aren't on the errand and speeds up, thinking the truck driver must be angry with her. But he keeps riding her bumper, periodically flashing his lights. Eventually, she pulls into her driveway, and the truck pulls right behind her, brights on full blast. The trucker runs up to the car carrying a loaded shotgun and fires into her back seat. She turns around and sees a dead man laying on her floorboards with a knife in his hand. I don't get in a vehicle without checking the back seat, no matter how sure I am that I locked the doors, because of this old and infamous urban legend. This abandoned convent house I used to live down the road from in a small West Texas town has a heck of a lot of rumors about it. Officially it was shut down due to a tornado weakening the infrastructure, but kept up for historical preservation built by Germanic Carmelites in the 30s. Odd thing is, this was a region not known for large or devastating tornadoes. And as the years went by, the stories came up about this house. One of the strangest theories that came about in the town I heard from my cousin, and that the real reason it was shut down was the priest impregnating the nuns and sisters, and having to hide the evidence over the years by killing and burying the newborns in the basement levels. Wet poop. My grandparents told us about Mardar. Mardar are the spirits of drowned victims that appear as bloated corpses with weeds tangled in their hair. They are usually described as having a childlike appearance, perhaps because victims of water-related accidents in ancient Vietnam were often children. Story go with the two boys played hide and seek at late afternoon. The younger one hid near the river next to their house. Accidentally drowned. He called help, but the sound not clearly, plus it was dark. The older one heard the sound but not realized it was his brother call for help. After several minutes, he could not find his brother, so he thought maybe his bro tired of playing and went home. So he went back home. That night, when the family realized their son was missing, they went searching to find their son's corpse. The next day, they funeral for their son. The older at the time saw his brother's face in a window near his brother's coffin. His face was blue, weed tangled in his hair. Looked straight to the older brother, and every night, he saw his brother on the window, near the gate, near the river. His brother called him to go near the river, to play together again. Too scared, the older brother told his grandma, and she said it was not her grandson. It was Mardar who took the younger brother's figure to deceive people and drowned them. So she made a tool, I forgot what it was, burned some joss papers and chased the Mardar. But it not the end. The older brother need to stay inside the house until his brother's funeral was done. If he go outside, he make a nothing straight and go to the river, drowned himself, and another Mardar will take his figure like how they did with his brother again. My hometown had a man whose face was severely disfigured from an electrical burning. He'd lost his eyes, nose, and one ear. He would take walks on a lonely stretch of road at night. As he was hesitant to go out during the day, he'd feel his way along with a walking stick. He was hit by cars more than once. He was called Charlie No Face, or the Green Man, for no apparent reason. People would go out on that stretch of road listening for the tap-tap of his cane, and offer him a cigarette if they found him during his walk. I've seen about 5-6 people say they were from this guy's hometown. Weird. Black-eyed children. The Jinn. I can remember an encounter that my cousin told me. So my cousin and the rest of the females of the family sleep on one big sheet together, since they all wake up in unison to pray. And it's a cultural thing. She said her aunt woke her up in the middle of the night asking for water. So my cousin went and got her a glassful. When she re-entered the room, her aunt was just standing in the corner of the room, facing the wall. My cousin called out her name, and the distorted, raspy voice of a man answers, "Did you bring me what I asked?" You're not supposed to speak to a jinn, and you're supposed to give in to small requests like a glass of water, or else the jinn will come back and ask for something greater. My cousin quietly sets the glass on the ground, and quickly curls up next to her other aunts. She said she stayed awake for hours out of fear, but didn't hear anything. Not her aunt moving from the corner, not the water being dragged. Next morning, everyone woke up together as usual, and my cousin immediately questioned her aunt about last night, though the aunt insisted she had never asked for anything and had just slept soundly. But the glass from across the room was completely empty. There is this one story about a woman who went nuts. She loved her kids so much that she did not want them to grow up. Her solution? To drown them in a lake. If you were a kid or a teen and you were to go near a lake at 3 a.m., legends say that she will drag you to the bottom of the lake and you will die. Probably a way to explain how drunk kids kept dying at the lake. Not saying there could not be some crazy that drowned her kids. Actually, that makes more sense than some ghost woman popping out of nowhere, screaming "Ooga booga" and dragging you to the pits of lake. In Kentucky, we have enough dogman sightings and stories that we have regional variations. The one in particular that sticks with me is the legend of the beast of land between the lakes. Sightings date back to pre-Jackson Purchase days in that area. French fur trap is described as 7.5-foot tall man covered in thick black fur, with the head of a large wolf and long talons at the end of human hands. The loup-garou they called him. It made him avoid western Kentucky like the plague. The legend I heard growing up that always disturbed me was that one of them killed a whole family locked in their camper. One humid Kentucky May night in the early 80s. Tore the door off its hinges. The boys at the State Forensics Lab up in Frankfurt could not identify the hair sample from the scene. Legend has it the sample came back canine. Unknown. Legend also has it that the state police found the parents and teenage son arranged in a pile of viscera and limbs on the camper floor, and splattered all over the walls. They followed a blood trail 50 yards to a tree line. The state police found the family's little girl 20 feet up a tree, half-eaten. I always heard that the feds took over the investigation, covered it up to prevent panic. They even destroyed all the RV pads with the electrical outlets and water lines. I hear that all the state police homicide detectives that were there that morning died in psych wards, disappeared, or changed their name and left the state. Fun campfire story. Jesus Christ, man. That is genuinely horrifying. Kentucky's werewolf legends seem to be more malevolent than the werewolf legends of other states. I have heard them all. This one is just the most disturbing.